Okay. Hello, I'm here to talk today about the Apple Share Client in macOS 10 and the AFP 3.0 protocol. Let's see here. Yeah. I want to go over what we've done with AFP 3.0 in macOS 10, talk about the AFP Client implementation, and then go over the user authentication module SDK that allows you to write plug-in authentication for Apple Share on 10. I'd like to start with a bit of overview of the history and the goals of AFP 3.0, what we've got that's new, and go over what we've actually accomplished here. AFP 3.0 is similar to HFS Plus in the same way that AFP 2.2 and the earlier versions were similar to HFS. So some of the same limitations and things. So we did AFP 3.0 in order to provide support for HFS Plus, provide longer names, improve the Unix-like feel of the whole thing, and give you support for greater than 2 gig files, long file names, and to improve our localization, our multilingual stuff. AFP 3.0 is, just like all the other AFP versions, is a superset of the previous ones. We did have to remove ProDOS support. We've added long Unicode names, up to 255 Unicode characters, 64-bit file sizes, that's somewhere way up in the terabytes instead of this 2 gig limit we've got today. We've added Unix permissions. We've added some optimizations to the protocol for long attentions to support directory services, much like Kerberos realms and things like that. Directory service nodes from the dir services folks. Support for automatically reconnecting if a connection gets broken. And we now do things in GMT rather than in seconds since the epic. Let's see. The basic new data type that we've added is an AFP name. It's in the git file dirparms calls and things. It's a new path type. So it's a 1-byte path type, 4 bytes of an encoding hint, which enables the Finder and Carbon to display the file name or what have you correctly. And 2 bytes of length, and then up to 765 bytes of UTF-8 data. The things that we've not finished in macOS 10, at least in the first release, is that we do not have reconnect support, we do not have long attention support, and we haven't completely hooked up with directory services to get our full directory service support. The AFP version string that we're advertising for AFP 3.0 is AFP X03. It'll be a Stump the Experts question next year, so be ready. And this is the list of the calls that we've added. We've got the first 3 there, the byte range lock, read, and write, are all things added to handle the larger file sizes, since we've got signed offsets and things like that in there. So we had to create some new calls for that. The get auth methods and the login extended are to support directory services. It allows you to query a directory node for the authorization types that it supports. The login extended allows you to specify the directory node you're logging into. It also allows you to use UTF-8 usernames and longer usernames for that matter. Get session token and disconnect old session are used by the reconnect code. When the Apple Share client logs in initially, if you're going to be supporting reconnect and have set an appropriate bit, they'll ask for a session token, which is a way to uniquely identify that specific session from the server. And then if that connection breaks and the Apple Share client wishes to attempt a reconnect, it will re-authenticate, and then it will send the FP disconnect old session request and handing that token that it got back from the FP get session token call. And that will tell the server to release all of the locks all of the files and things that were held by the old session that is no longer there. And that allows, hopefully, for the client to seamlessly rebuild the resources and things that were used by the old session that had gotten disconnected. We've changed a few calls, pretty much adding new bitmaps and things like that. Server info call, we've added flag bits to say it supports reconnect and supports the dir services stuff. We've added directory names listed in there. Get server parms, we're using UTF-8 volume names, but they still have the single byte length. So what you get is just an encoding change. Map ID and map name map between user IDs and UTF-8 names now, as well as just standard Pascal names. And map name is the same thing the other way. Get file dir parms also has, it's not on the list here, but it's got some bitmap changes as well to support longer file sizes. Going on to the AppleShare client in Mac OS X. The basic goal of the project was to provide the same functionality as the Mac OS IX client, and to capitalize on what I promised last year, is to have minimal changes in the APIs that you would program to it. And we've done pretty good. The experience of mounting a volume in Mac OS X is a little bit different. You've got a lot more ways to mount volumes. There's from the Finder through the go-to server thing, you can use the classic chooser. Aliases work, but the login window can also be set up to mount a volume for you. You can mount things through the keychain, and the auto mounter in Mac OS X will mount volumes silently can be set up to mount volumes silently for you as you open windows and access files and stuff. And we've added a lot of international support using the Mac OS X internationalization tools. In terms of what you see as a developer, the AppleShare client fits into many layers in the 10 world. And we have 3 APIs that we're working with at the moment. Let's see. As you can see, we've got some things which live and can be called from Carbon. As the Finder there's a high-level AppleShare client framework. There's a core framework that gets called by command line tools, the auto mounter, and things like that. Then there are some things in kernel space, a plug-in file system, and a socket interface. The user authentication methods sort of straddle the Carbon, non-Carbon line because they have a Carbon portion which can put up HI and a non-Carbon portion for those times when you're not allowed to put up HI. Shared Volume Enumerator API, which was used by nav services in the network browser on Mac OS IX, has got some more calls that allow you to do more things in a more Unixy fashion, I suppose. The create shared volume enumerator from address takes the struct sock adder to do things rather than a server name and a zone. Mount shared volume on MP, it mounts a volume on a specified mount point, and the change password call is one that we added in here. All these things need Carbon because they can put up HI if need be. The other API that's currently available is AFP URLs, and you've seen them if you've looked at Connect to sometimes, and they're very similar to FTP URLs. These URLs will allow you to use add username and password to things. And in the example here, I've got a username of Leland, password of foo at a specific server and a specific volume name. You can also, actually going back here, I forgot. You can also specify an AppleTalk one, although that's not very useful right now. But you can do it, and that's pretty much the format, same stuff. You can specify user authentication method names in there by inserting the auth equals UAM name construct into them. The example there, is it legible for you folks? Okay. Is the way to specify guest login in AppleShare. So that's using the no user authentication UAM. The API is pretty simple. A way to create one, you hand it the fields and it'll spit out a URL. A way to get rid of one, a way to tell if the string that you're passing it is a UAM, a way to parse out the various bits and pieces, and a way to mount that URL on a specific mount point. The other API, which we will have as a beta SDK, well, it's supposed to be up on the website today, but it looks like it'll be next week, is the user authentication module API. We've got a few changes from macOS 9, but not many. It's packaged as bundles, still has the same entry point as the old macOS 9, same callbacks, and I'll go over what you need to do to port a UAM from macOS 9 and show you an example of doing a port. The UAMs on macOS 10 are bundles of type UAMX. They live in library file systems AppleShare authentication. They're loaded with the standard CF bundle calls. There's nothing really special about them. They're not CF plugins. I didn't need something that heavyweight. And it contains sub-bundles, one of which is a high-level one of which is a low-level one. We need the low-level bundle, the non-carbon bundle, because these things can be loaded without a user context, such as by auto-mount or at boot time or other things like that, places where you can't go to the Windows server and put up human interface. The biggest API level changes are your handed destruct sock adder instead of an OT address. We've added a few fields to pass to the UAM the UTF-8 username and the directory names. Session reference number is now a long instead of a short, and we're not using the async callbacks because you can do multi-threaded access to this stuff. A bundle, our UAM bundle is, is a bundle, and you can have inside of it a high-level bundle and a low-level bundle. Those things are pointed to by the info P list. Most of the things in the info P list are from the UAMG resource on macOS 9. We've got keys for the protocol name, the maximum password length, and a dictionary which tells the AppleShare client where the high-level and low-level sub-bundles are with an identifier and a path. And it also gives you the name of the entry point, so you can change that if you want. There's also a localized string in there, which is the user visible name that will appear in the HI sometime in the future. The entry point is the same entry point as we had on macOS 9. Takes a UAM arg structure. It's very much a parameter block interface. The selectors are just the same as macOS 9. The open when the UAM is loaded, a login when you've requested to log in, a close, and then selectors for optionally putting up dialogues for the password for the volume selection, for changing passwords, and selectors for handling persistent data storage. The callbacks are the same as in macOS 9. Callback to get additional information about the client, callback to open the session, to send the request to close the session. All of these things allow you to write a UAM that has no idea what network it's going to, because all of that's abstracted out in the callbacks. In order to port a macOS 9 UAM, all you have to do is compile your main code and resources into the high-level bundle, set up the entry points in the outer bundle, set up the info P list in the outer bundle, and then basically install it. Further information about this stuff can be found up on the website. There's stuff in the developer.apple.com, the macOS networking page there. It's got information on DIR services and on AFP 3.0 and on the AppleShare Client APIs. Bit SDK ought to be up sometime next week, and if not, give me an email. DIR services docs are back up on the site, as I said, and the other stuff, just take a look at the AppleShare Client.framework and AppleShare Client Core.framework stuff. Both of the other sessions that might be interesting have already occurred, so you'll have to catch them in DVD. And further stuff can be directed towards Tom Wire.